Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, we got a lot of Maple Leaf stuff to talk about, including the goaltending tandem, the defense, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Michael Bunting, and just everything in between, because the team is just absolutely rolling right now. We talked about Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray here on the channel in the previous video, but since then they've collected back-to-back shutouts, so I feel it's worth going over. When we first found out that the Maple Leafs would be rolling with a tandem of Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov this past summer, a lot of people were skeptical. And I mean, rightfully so. If we're looking at the numbers for Ilya Samsonov in really what was his first season in carrying more of a starter's workload, the numbers weren't the greatest. And if we're looking at Matt Murray's from last season, yeah, they were kind of good, but they were only in 20 games because he was constantly injured, and the most amount of games that he's played over the last 3 years was 38 when he was still a Pittsburgh Penguin. A lot of people pointed out that the Maple Leafs finished 27th in 5-on-5 save percentage last season, while also setting a franchise record with 115 points. You know, how much worse could Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray really be? That as long as the team in front of them was still good, which it was going to be, it shouldn't make that much of a difference. But at the same time, the Maple Leafs had a really good opportunity to upgrade drastically on a 115-point team because their goaltending was so bad, right? We kept saying all of last year, imagine if this team could just get a save. Because there were other options out there that maybe would have inspired more confidence than what Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray did when the Maple Leafs first acquired him. But I don't think that there was an option out there that was just a 100% surefire bet like when the Maple Leafs acquired Frederik Andersen back in 2016. I don't think there was a goalie like that available this summer. And every other option that would have inspired more confidence eventually ended up signing contracts that were 3 years in length or longer. And the significance of that is that Austin Matthews and William Nylander are set to be UFAs in 2 years' time. So if you were signing a goaltender that you weren't 100% confident in, that was still going to be on the books when those guys needed to be re-signed, well, then that might have complicated that process or taken away their ability to re-sign those guys and still build a competitive team around them. So in acquiring Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, Matt Murray with 2 years left on his deal expires at the same time, and Ilya Samsonov, who's going to be an RFA at the end of this season, it gave the Maple Leafs a short-term gamble and long-term flexibility. But still, even with that being the case, I don't think that anybody thought that both of these guys at this point of this season would both be top 10 in the NHL in basically every single goaltending metric that's out there. And that's why we watch sports. That's why we play the games, because you get these incredible stories about a guy who can't stay healthy. His father passes away. He's having a really hard time, but then he gets an opportunity to play for his favorite team growing up, his father's favorite team growing up, and he's killing it. And then you get another guy who's 25 years old, a former first-round pick. The team that drafted him lets him go, gives up on him, and he's amazing this season. It's just, you can't say enough good things about these goaltenders. I mean, even Matt Murray, coming over from a divisional rival, the Ottawa Senators, did not want him. They are paying part of his salary to be one of the better goaltenders in the NHL so far this year. They gave the Maple Leafs a 3rd and a 7th round pick for Matt Murray to be one of the better goaltenders in the NHL so far this season. Matt Murray's 44 save shutout against the Dallas Stars a couple of games ago was incredible for a number of reasons. First of all, the Joe Bowen call on the 5-on-3 penalty kill was incredible. I'll leave it linked in the description of the video for you guys to check out. And secondly, the 5.979 goal save above expected was the highest by any goalie in a shutout since modern stats have started to be kept. If you're at a Maple Leafs home game coming up, this guy deserves to hear it after every save, after every whistle. It's an amazing story. Mitch Marner's point streak is now up to 22 games, and it doesn't look like it's ever going to end. That's how dominant he's been. He's leading the team in points with 35 in 29 games, but I think the most impressive thing about him over this point streak has been his goal-scoring ability. Because the biggest criticism of him in his career to this point has been, yeah, he's a great playmaker, he's a great two-way player, but he's not much of a goal scorer, and he makes close to $11 million. Well, Last year he scored 35, but he scored the majority of those in the second half of last season, where he really took his game to a new level. And over this 22 game point streak, he's got 11 goals in 22 games. That's a 40 goal pace. And if we're looking at the numbers so far, in the calendar year of 2022, he's currently fourth in the NHL in points, just 14 behind Connor McDavid. But also, if we're looking at the amount of goals that he scored, he's also 12th on this list with 41 goals. He's just been absolutely ridiculous in 2022 so far. The storyline surrounding the Maple Leafs so far this year has been, oh my god, this team sucks, what are we going to do, to why can't Austin Matthews score goals, to the goaltending has been absolutely spectacular, to Mitch Marner being on a 22 game point streak, that how good William Nylander has been has sort of been lost in the mix. He's on pace for over 90 points this season and close to 50 goals. He leads the team in scoring with 17 goals so far. And that 5-point performance against the Calgary Flames, 2 goals and 3 assists, makes him the third star this week in the NHL. He's been incredible so far this year. Another underrated storyline has been both the struggles and the triumphs of Michael Bunting so far. He started the season with 6 points in his first 16 games, and we said here on this channel the Maple Leafs needed more from him. They need more from guys not named Matthews, Marner, Nylander, or Tavares. And in his last 13 games, he's got 14 points, and he's back up to his old antics, right? He's yelling at Sean Durzi from the bench, and he's getting the crowd all riled up. He's been a lot of fun. Everywhere you look on this team right now, there's an amazing story. Mark Giordano, who's 39 years old, has been playing up over 22 minutes a night since both Morgan Rielly and TJ Brodie went down to injuries. He's been awesome all season long. Now, at the age of 39, how much longer can he keep this up? I don't know. But when the Maple Leafs have needed him the most, he's stepped up his game. And this is a guy who in the summer had a contract in front of him and looked at it himself and said, you know what, I'll take a bit less because I want to help this team out. It's an amazing story. I can't be happier to have him around. And Rasmus Sandin is another guy who came into training camp this year having held out and didn't really look so great to start the season, and we were nervous about what this team was going to look like with injuries to Morgan Rielly and TJ Brodie and Jake Muzzin and several other defensemen, because last season when Rasmus Sandin had an opportunity to play top 4 minutes, he wasn't really the greatest. But this season, he's flourished in those minutes, in that responsibility. He's taken it and run. He's been great over the last couple of weeks or so. And the same can be said about Timothy Liljegren, who's taken his game to another level as well over the last couple of weeks. And to a lesser degree, Justin Holl, it's always up and down. It's the roller coaster, like I like to call it. But he's been playing up over 20 minutes a night, basically every game for the last 2 or 3 weeks with the injuries that the Maple Leafs have had to their lineup. And when he's not picking up the puck and throwing it at other players, he has been kind of good over the last month or so. He's stepped up when they've needed him the most, and that's been a theme all across this team. They've just found ways to win. If we're looking at the lines from practice from today, a guy like TJ Brodie's been back for the last couple of games. They're starting to get healthier at least, but now the defensemen are starting to come back from injuries, and they're starting to lose forwards as well. We'll talk about that in a minute or so. A guy that I want to talk about is Connor Timmins, because I haven't had an opportunity to talk about him so far. Connor Timmins is a 24-year-old right-handed defenseman. He's 6'2", he's over 200 pounds, and he was drafted 32nd overall by the Colorado Avalanche just a couple of seasons ago. He's had a number of injuries at this point in his career that have kind of held him back, but by all accounts, he's got NHL talent, and he's also a former Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound, so that makes it a bit funny as well. And to acquire him, the Maple Leafs had to give up 22-year-old center Curtis Douglas, who's also 6'9" and 248 pounds, and a lot of people will see that and remember the trade that the Maple Leafs made for Dennis Malgin, giving up a bigger player who was playing for the Toronto Marlies and Mason Marchment, who ended up figuring it out with the Florida Panthers afterwards. But with a guy like Curtis Douglas, from all the reports that I've read, from watching him play as well, this is a guy who's 6'9" and 248 pounds, yes, but doesn't necessarily use his size to his advantage. He's also not the strongest skater on his skates, so he gets pushed off the puck by guys who are a lot smaller than him. If we're looking at his one extended stretch of games at the NHL level, he got into 31 games with the Avalanche in the 2020-2021 season, so just 2 seasons ago. he was fairly effective in a third pairing role for them. And I mean, they always say if you want to go on a deep playoff run, you're going to need 8, 9, even 10 defensemen. And I think the Maple Leafs have used like 13 or 14 to start this year. So that's obviously a bit extreme, but I think he can be a competent depth piece for this team moving forward. And he's even got some upside. Like I said, still being 24, hasn't really played a ton of games to really take the next step in his development. But he's 6'2". He's over 200 pounds. He's got some offensive abilities. Yeah, sounds pretty good. He's only played 3 games with the Maple Leafs so far, and there's obviously an adjustment period, so there's not a whole ton to go off of when it comes to Timmins, but I feel that he's gotten more comfortable with every game that he's played, and the game against the Flames was probably his best. He was playing alongside TJ Brody. You know, they're easing Brody back into the lineup after coming back from his oblique injury, and they're also giving Timmins a defensive partner who's very easy to play with. I feel like Brody can play with almost anybody at this point. But with Morgan Rielly, Jordy Ben, Victor Mete, Jake Muzzin, Philip Kral, and Carl Dahlstrom all still out with injuries, the Maple Leafs' organizational defensive depth is still clearly in need of some help. So Connor Timmins is going to get an opportunity to play over the next little while, and I'm rooting for him. One of the last things that I wanted to talk about in today's video is the injury to Nick Robertson, and Sheldon Keefe saying after the game against the LA Kings that he's going to miss significant time, probably between 6 to 8 weeks with a shoulder injury. And now this is every year of Nick Robertson's professional career that he's suffered an injury like this, where he's going to be out for like 2 or 3 months, and it sucks because this is obviously a smaller player that plays a tenacious style of game. He's not afraid to go into the corners. He's not afraid to play along the boards, and that's a quality that you want, but I don't know if this is just going to be the way that it is with him, you know, or he's going to have to change his game, adapt somehow, because he works really hard and he's really talented, but he just can't stay healthy. Every time I look at the standings, it amazes me because of how poorly they played in the month of October, but also because of how many injuries they've suffered this season. Whether it be their best players being their best players, or the goaltending stepping in and stealing points, or the guys that we talked about on the blue line earlier stepping up when they've needed them the most, this team has just found ways to win. It's been inspiring hockey over the last month and a half or so, and it's been a lot of fun to watch them play. There's still a lot of games left to be played, but right now, the Maple Leafs are one of the best teams in the NHL. But that's going to be it for the video, guys, so make sure to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. I know I haven't been posting a ton of videos the last little while, and I'm sorry about that. I had COVID like 2 months ago, and I got over it pretty quickly, but it's left me with this lingering cough that kind of triggers the more that I talk, and it's made making these videos kind of frustrating. It's made them take a lot longer, obviously, and that's why I haven't been posting as much, but it seems to be getting better, hopefully, anyway. So I'll see you again in the next one, guys. I should be posting more videos more often going forward.